Hey everybody, welcome back again to the AD&D 2nd Edition channel. I'm going to get right into this shortly like I promised. We're going to end up putting all these on the turntable so you guys can get a closer look at exactly what these minis look like that I recently got from that eBay lot, which I paid $30 Canadian for, which equates to about $22 US. So pretty good deal, 62 minis. Let's get them on the turntable. Up first, we're looking at an Amazon Huntress, a Blade Golem, and an Emotep Incinerator. We can see right off the start that the Blade Golem has a broken arm. That being said, who is to say that you cannot have injured monsters in D&D? I've always wondered about that, as if DMs might make an encounter where the creature's not 100% health due to a previous battle. The Amazon Huntress would be great, but as you can see, she's holding a couple of guns. Perhaps she can be modified so that there's still some hope for her usage. The Emotep Incinerator looks quite tech-like. I'm not certain if there's a construct in D&D that would suit this mini. If you know of any, please let me know. Overall though, the details are nice here. But let's move on. Next up, we have a few minis that I've seen before in the previous Mage Knight find that I bought from Value Village. These whirling golems still make great constructs, but I am uncertain if I need as many as I have at this point. Still, they are very nicely detailed and painted and totally usable. They really stand out with their fine edges and shiny finish, and quickly my eyes are drawn to them whenever I see them in a lot of minis. Really, they just need to be based and should be good to go. Here we can see 4 UTEM Guardsmen. I have previously picked these up in the previous lot of Mage Knight minis that I found at Value Village. These will most certainly need some repainting, but would be excellent on the table as guards or militia or perhaps some general mercenaries. Because I have a few of these from before, it seems I am able to make a band of these guys. Really, the only need to repaint them would be to have some differentiation in them when they are all grouped together. Next, we have 2 UTEM Crossbowsmen and 2 Emotep Gunners. Again, these are minis that I've already collected from the previous lot, but again, they would work well in giant groups of militia or mercenaries. Really, depending on the paint job and time spent detailing them, they could also be useful minis for players as well. They would do well with some differing paint jobs in order to tell them apart, but you really cannot have enough of these kinds of characters to fill out your battle terrain. These 2 Steam Golems are great, and again, I must compliment WizKids on their creation of these golem types of figures. They really seem to hold up the best, not only in the amount of detail that you can see, but also in their paint jobs. Due to the Mage Knight paint markers though, they will require a repainting. It's always nice to get minis like this in pairs, as it allows you to use them as guards or on the sides of dungeon doors or in a mage tower. Really, the potential here is limitless. The next 4 are the Rangers. I refer to them as the Broken Rangers since each one of them is missing a piece, or in one case the Ranger's foot has been severed. I can see myself omitting some of their weapons because it is slight overkill to have a bow in one hand and a bladed weapon in the other, so as far as that's concerned, a missing weapon is not a big deal. Rangers, as I am sure you are aware, will fit nicely in most campaigns, so I see no problem with these being usable after I fix them up. Unfortunately, they look like they have the serious pudding face syndrome, as the paint has been haphazardly applied here, so a repainting is an absolute must in this case. When I see these 2 Crystal Bladesmen, all I envision is a set of twins seeking vengeance for some wrongdoing. What is so great about them is that they have a different stance from each other, but otherwise appear to be identical. It is hard to tell from the way that they are painted, but there are some really great details here that a paint job would totally fix, and when I get around to painting them, I'm going to be sure to make their faces match so that you can identify them as twins. Even in the stances they are now in, I picture them standing back to back fighting off a horde of goblins or some beastie similar. I'm really pleased to add these into my huge list of upcoming projects. If anyone is after some great Royal Knights to lead their armies, you cannot go wrong with this set of 3 Liege Knights and 1 Seething Knight. Not your usual adventurers, these knights would do anything to protect their king's land. With a new paint job and rebasing, they would be really awe-inspiring. I would likely try to use a very controlled wash, as I would like to get them as shiny as possible to show that they are well taken care of, yet still use the wash to darken the recesses. There seems to be lots of detail to play around with here, and it will be a blast to paint them. The Royal Pikeman and Shield Wall Knight fit well with the last group of knights, and there is some rather great detailing on the shield of one of the knights. Obviously both can fit into a variety of settings, including with some royal knights or as guardsmen to the right and left of a queen on her throne. Again though, they will obviously need some major touch-ups, although in the stripping of the paint on these ones we'll lose the knight standard that has been printed on his shield. Here come some rather unarmored women fighters called Nightblades. I will likely paint their skin as clothes when I go to repaint them, as obviously their outfits don't offer much in the way of an armor class bonus. The other fighter is an Immortal Fanatic, who also seems to have forgotten to put much of his gear on this morning. Needless to say though, they look pretty great despite the one Nightblade missing her arms. Luckily, they are still intact and can be reattached easily. I rather like the dual wielding nature of all of these minis, but particularly the Immortal Fanatic with that dynamic, almost sprinting stance with the blades at his sides. It's time to work some magic users into the mix. In this grouping we have 2 Demi-Magus, a Mending Priestess, and a Faith Healer. Let us start with the Faith Healer, as I think I will be repainting this one and using it as my mini for the 5e group that I'm currently playing with. Muddy Face seems to be the order of the day on the paint jobs on these minis, but overall they will paint up nicely when I get a chance to work with them. I like the dress detail on the Mending Priestess as well, and feel there is a lot more that could be done with her. I see her as the leader of the 2 Demi-Magus that act as a pair of underlings that do her bidding. Overall, very useful for D&D, and super pleased to add these into the ever-growing pile of projects I need to complete. Now we are getting into some very interesting minis, and from what I can tell, the last of the human type minis from this lot. After this, we're going to be looking at the monsters. I'm so happy to show you the Dwarven Berserker, the Heavy Lancer, and the Centaur Lieutenant. Much like the Dwarven Axeman in the previous Mage Knight haul, this Berserker is super cool, with an aggressive stance yet a horrible paint job. He will look superb next to the Axeman when he's finally completed. It is nice to get a Heavy Lancer, as he is obviously a mounted character, which I do have a few from the Lord of the Rings minis that I found earlier this year, but his style is quite different and unique compared to them, so I'm pretty happy to add him into the collection. As for the Centaur, he is a wonderful addition to the collection, and as you might recall in the previous video, having gotten the Snow Maiden, I can see a good story arc springing up from the combination of the two. Having no other true Centaur in the collection until now, he is also a wonderful addition. Now we're starting to get into the monster aspects of this, so follow along as I show you the various monsters that were in this lot. First of the monster types are a skeleton and a marsh zombie. As always, it's great to get some more minis to round out the undead horde often associated with the game. Again, there's tons of detail that has been obscured by muted paint schemes, but that can be remedied for sure. You can see on the skeleton that they did a dry brush, but really it's the wrong color for bone. Once that's fixed up, he will look spot on. And of course, you cannot lose with zombies. Overall, totally usable, and great minis that you should seek out if you need some undead. I'm pretty sure they're only a few bucks online. For the Goblin Archer, Heatseeker, and Goblin Cannibal, there is some potential, but that hideous green color has got to go. It in no way makes them look like goblins at all. I do really like the sculpt for the Heatseeker, as it looks like he's using a blowgun, which is a weapon for a monster that I've not seen on a mini yet, and it's the only one in my collection that really has one. Really, you can never have enough goblins around, as they're so frequently in large tribes and packs when they attack, being the cowards that they are. They always seem to have to outnumber their opponents to feel confident to attack. Well, at least that's the way I see them. I find the Archer quite interesting because he really looks like he might be a repaint of another figure. It seems to me that the clothes are too proper for a goblin, but perhaps that's just me. Only time will tell when we get around to stripping and painting these little devils. What is great about these two deep spawn is that they match up really nicely with the wave spawn that I previously got. If you were paying attention in that video, I basically said that I would be keeping an eye out for more wave spawns. Well, these are not quite the same, but they sit alongside them perfectly, which is much better than having duplicates of the wave spawn, so in a way this really worked out nicely. I actually like the paint job on these two, which has not been my usual comment about Mage Knight minis during this video, but these are pretty great. I will have to go back over the yellow and blue parts with more appropriate color though. Now these two fellas are some rather thick looking goblinoids. These slashers, as they are named, seem a little stocky for goblins, so perhaps there is another way to classify them. Nonetheless, they are quite detailed and will repaint really nicely. I feel they would fit well with the goblins that I have painted up before, and feel that this image does not really do them justice, as there is tons of veins in the arms that this paint job does not highlight well. They look like some very defensive frontline type monsters in their stance, which allows their shields to offer them a ton of defense. For your information, they do have faces, although due to the bland paint job, you really can't see any definition. It will be fun fixing these up, although since I already have some similar models in my arsenal of creatures, I highly doubt that I'll be getting to these ones anytime soon. Here are some bat-like creatures that I had originally spotted when I first saw the eBay listing for this lot. As soon as I spied them, I knew I would be bidding. I am rather interested in the 3-barrel bloodsuckers, and the rancid bloodsucker acts as a bonus for sure. Recently, with a couple of vampire miniatures and similar vein models, I can see a theme developing with some gothic horror elements. Obviously, the ridiculous pants will need to be repainted to make these guys look more beastly, and I will try to make them look like they're part of their legs instead. I will need to take a closer look to see if this can be done. It is great to have 3 of them. I'm curious if you all think I should put them on flying bases or not. Let me know. As far as the rancid bloodsucker, I also think it helps to round out the group, as though one of them is diseased or perhaps partly damaged. Really, its presence mixes up the variety. The next 3 also caught my attention when I was looking at the eBay listing. I could tell originally that there was some sort of elemental creature, but really could not make out exactly what I was looking at. Still, they are a determining factor on me bidding. What we have here is a wood golem and 2 living elementals. Obviously, they would fit nicely in a wooded scene, camouflaged by the foliage and ready to spring out as your players' adventurers crept into the forest. I look forward to rebasing and painting these up, as they have some serious ridges I feel would make great practice for me in my growth as a mini painter. What I mean by this is that I could work on shading within those recesses, and because they are so pronounced, I would really be able to see if my techniques were working and having the effect that I was looking for. Needless to say, I love elementals, and these will fit in quite nicely with the others that I have painted before. The Troll Brawler and Screeching Terror will make excellent monsters in many campaigns. I see the Troll Brawler having an end boss kind of vibe, or a leader of a goblin army kind of vibe. Typical trolls are not shown with armor on, so I'm sure there's some backstory here that will explain how this one gained such prominence. As for the Screeching Terror, he is an excellent demon minion, and I have recently gotten a similar mini that he can go alongside of well. Of course, as per usual, paint jobs will need to be redone, but there's a lot that can go into making these minis table ready. Here were a couple of models that made me want this eBay lot. I have been looking for cheap werewolf options out there, but had not come across any that I felt were suitable. Immediately when I saw these ones, I knew I had found what I was looking for. The werebear is also quite interesting, as it's not a mini that you would see that often, but would totally fit in with so many different adventures. I'm happy to have gotten these for under 50 cents each, and many of the minis in this lot, these are some of the ones that I'm most pleased to get. In all likelihood, when I get back to priming and basing models, these will be the first ones to get the paint stripping treatment in the spring. Unfortunately here, this Radiant Light Dragon is missing a wing. I'm not disappointed, as this was mentioned in the description of the eBay lot, and I was under the impression that it had no wings at all, so to get this one is a bonus. I am kicking myself though, as I found a Skeletal Dragon Halloween figure whose wings would have served as a good base for making replacements for this one, but I didn't buy it. Thankfully, Halloween will be back around again sometime, or perhaps I will find something that could work whilst thrifting. Still, it would make a great mini for a sea serpent with a little repainting. Sorry for the still shots here, but this mini and the next one are too heavy for it to spin on the turntable. Despite the missing wing, it still will serve a purpose, but I'll need to figure out a new base for it, as I do not have any that are quite big enough to fit this model. It's hard to call this one a mini because of its size, but the Fist of Tesla has some amazing sculpting going on. I'm unsure if it is in any way suitable for D&D, as I have never heard of anything that quite fits its description. If I do decide to unload it, it goes for about the same amount of money that I paid for the entire eBay lot, so really, one way or another, this figure will come in handy. Well, that's all I got for you this time around. Thanks again for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do feel free to thumbs up this video, comment down below, and I will see you all later.